In 2005, they looked at this, and so much has changed that it's time. So Maggie's going to give us some pointers and how you, as citizens, can contribute to hopefully change the situation there where it is better controlled, that we can control these discharges. So Maggie?
Thank you. First of all, I would say do not despair. Do not sell your house and move somewhere else. Cyanobacteria is all over the world. It's in the Kansas City reservoir that they use for water. It's in Lake Erie. It's killing sea otters in Monterey Bay. Let's solve the problem here. Is that possible, or is all hope lost? One of the things to remember is that the success story for phosphorus only, as Larry points out, the federal court order, because the federal court had the political will to do it, made a significant change in terms of the phosphorus that was coming out of the EAA. That was mandatory, monitored, and enforced. Perhaps not totally properly mandated, or totally properly monitored, or totally properly enforced, but significantly enough that when you read, sometimes they fudge up by only using dry years, but when you read the data of similar rainfall years and what's in the runoff coming out of the EAA, after you all have contributed millions of tax dollars to help clean it up, it's a whole lot better. We obviously need to do that north of the lake, east of the lake, and west of the lake. We need to do it in all the watersheds. We need to do it as soon as possible, but it's not going to happen tomorrow. There's going to be in the meantime. And we need to do nitrogen. Actually, people did realize, back when we were talking about SERP, that when you talk about limiting nutrients, it doesn't mean that's the only bad nutrient. It means the one you have too much of. And as soon as you've got too much of both of them, and as soon as you get too much of the one you had too much of, you're down to having too much of the one you have too much of, but not as much as the other one. So when we looked at the estuary and the IRL South plan, we looked at something that was largely nitrogen limited, but if we knock the nitrogen back, we're going to have a phosphorus problem. Same thing's true in what Larry's talking about down in Florida Bay, in terms of that unique phosphorus availability down there, changing the thing, and the fact that STAs have never been designed to deal with phosphorus. Nobody talked about anything except phosphorus, when in fact nitrogen is always as important, and which is limiting changes when you change the other. So we do need to go do those things, but in the meantime, what about LORS or LOSOM? Lake Okeechobee regulation schedule. I forget what LOSOM means, but we hope it doesn't end up being LOSOM. The Corps is now in a scoping look at what they need to study. My answer is not just to us. Please scope all of the impacts of how we regulate Lake Okeechobee. Scope the impacts and tell us what you're doing in Florida Bay. Scope the impacts and tell us what you're doing to us on all around. But there are some things that the Lake Okeechobee schedule, that the management of Lake Okeechobee can't solve the problem, but can improve the problem in the meantime. Because that will happen hopefully sooner than the construction of the rest of the SERP projects, the new STAs and the nitrogen reduction we need, the new kind of programs we need north of the lake. Some of you were at Paul Gray's talk here some months ago, put on by the Alliance, and it was very interesting to listen to Paul explain that there is no microcystis or hazardous algae bloom in the marshes in Lake Okeechobee. There is practically no phosphorus in the marshes in Lake Okeechobee. One of the disadvantages we have on the East Coast side, they actually discharge more water to the Caloosahatchee, almost twice as much, but about half as many nutrients, because they have a huge marsh area in the southeast corner of the lake, and we have no marsh area at all where it comes in at Port Mayaca and to the St. Lucie Canal. When you raise the lake, according to Paul, who probably knows more about the lake levels and the lake health than most anybody, over 16 feet, you begin begin to kill what we call the submerged aquatic vegetation. Submerged aquatic vegetation is the stuff that maybe in 8 feet of water. It's submerged, most of it. It's not the stuff that's sticking its leaves and flowers up out of the water. It's the stuff that's under the water level and just coming right up to the surface. Paul says that when you get over 16 feet for a couple of months and longer, you begin to destroy a significant amount of the submerged aquatic vegetation. What does that do? Okay, it kills the stuff, it drops to the bottom, and it rots, adding to the nutrients. It knocks out a competitor that the algae might face for nutrients, because it's not using up nutrients anymore. Its roots die, and all of that stuff that has now been made worse and has more nutrients in it becomes flocculent ooze that adds nutrients. So every time we raise the lake too high, we're going to have more problem of wider cyanobacteria blooms that have more surface area and more available nutrients to grow. Who wants the lake higher? They're a little quieter about it now, but I think there was a helicopter ride just celebrated last week. That as soon as we fix the dike, we'll just keep the water in the lake, and we won't have any problem anymore. You guys won't be dumped on. And the Corps has been saying patiently, well, nobody paid any attention, I'm sorry, it's not going to be that easy. We're going to fix what was going to break. But it's not going to mean that, I think Tom Van Lint told me if we made the dike 19 feet higher, we might be able to store more water in it, or all the water you want to store in it and not dump it. So, when you look at the health of the lake, and you look at storing more water, they are diametrically opposed. The sugar industry lost a bit of its water guarantee in 2005 when the Corps of Engineers pointed out that at 18 feet levels, the dike had a 50% chance of breaking. Talk about what they're doing to us in terms of cyanotoxin. The Water Management District knew this in the late 1900s, and they left the lake at 18 feet without telling anybody for months. It took the Corps, which sometimes slowly gets things right, to say, you got to do something about it. So that was the first time that anything except agriculture's irrigation water and agriculture's and urban areas flood control and irrigation was considered. We've been pushing, and you can keep pushing, and we should be pushing to say there's a whole new ballgame. We need to look at public health and safety. And luckily, a lot of places we run into Hobson's choices. Luckily, when we look at the health of the lake for wildlife, for snail kites, for a healthy Lake Okeechobee as a lake instead of an industrial sun, it coincides with reducing cyanobacteria blooms. Not going to make them go away. It's going to make them less often, less intense, and less damaging. It's not just on the high side, and we need to resist the idea that we can just keep water higher in the lake, because then we're going to have higher water, bigger blooms, and they're going to end up dumping the whole mess on us, as well as the influences that it's going to have to the south. On the other end, too dry kills emergent vegetation. That's the stuff that's waving its leaves and blooms up out of the water, and it dies, and it rots, and it adds nutrients, and its roots die, and everything becomes flocculent ooze, and it makes the whole thing worse. So, a lot of people will talk about what the ban should be. I'm not about to tell you what the ban should be between 10.5 and 14.5 or this and that and the other. It's not that simple. It's a modeling issue that shows you how to avoid getting over 16 feet and how to avoid getting below 10.5 feet, except once every 10 years. It's a complicated thing. We have computers. We can work out the complexity of what will give us the healthiest lake with the least amount of cyanobacteria in it. It would be nice to tell them just to stop. And you heard the Hobson's choice, that until we can clean up the lake watersheds north of the lake and so on, until we can, we're not going to get there. But this is not just our problem, and I think in terms of looking at lures, We need to point out that sending dirty water south from Lake Okeechobee is part of the thing that that the Corps of Engineers needs to talk about in its scoping. They need to talk about the fact that they're not getting the nitrogen out, that they're still not getting enough phosphorus out, particularly if they start sending more water south. And they need to show us what the impact is so people will understand what's happening, instead of having it happen and say, well, we just tried to balance things. Tell us what the balance is in terms of that. In terms of what we can do in the EAA, it's going to take a combination of the governor's initiative and the Corps, because the beginning thought was, at least if we put a large enough area of the EAA into STAs, at least if we adapted those STAs so they remove nitrogen as efficiently as they remove phosphorus, or perhaps more efficiently, given the ratio problem we have and the problem of the nitrogen coming from the mud, then we can make a difference there. And one of the things, I think the answer is, had we bought the 650,000 acres of the EAA in 1995, would that have been a better way? Yes. We did. Now they won't even sell us the 60,000 acres we need. They wouldn't even sell us the 100,000 acres we need an option on. We need to make sure we have enough area there. But I think in terms of, in the meantime, stay with it on the Lord's meeting. Many of you were there. They held 2 hearings for us. The congressman and the Corps colonel and the assistant Corps colonel sat here from 1 o'clock in the afternoon till 10 o'clock at night, and they did listen, and they weren't even yawning. They understand the problem. We need to keep on. I have friends who tell me that we really shouldn't be emphasizing public health, but we can use it as a talking point. What they mean is, if we can save the Everglades, then we can save Florida Bay, we can save Lake Okeechobee, we can save us. If we could really get it all together in terms of both the water quality and the plumbing mechanisms to do that, that would take care of our problem. My answer is, I don't think public health is just a talking point. I don't think cyanobacteria and what we learned about cyanotoxins is just a talking point. It is a whole new thing. It is just as terrifying as it sounds, if not more so. And it is so terrifying that half your public officials still don't believe it. And as long as they don't believe it, they're not going to deal with it, either to make a healthy lake, to regulate the levels better, to try to clean up better what they're sending south. That I think I am most appalled in this process by, you will remember that at our Lord's hearing, there were a large group of people from Lake Okeechobee saying, oh, you cannot bring the lake down to 10.5 because that would kill the lake. What they meant is you really need to store more water in the lake because we want to have more irrigation water. If you went to the Palm Beach County meeting, you would find that everybody there, except 2 people, Becky Harris, whose dog almost died, and someone from Bull Sugar, were saying, oh, you really can't move the lake down to 10.5. Stay involved. They are listening. The Lord schedule will not solve it. Don't let anybody tell you the Lord schedule can't make it better. Thank you.